That's tricky. It wouldn't start, so not sure why. Anyway, the little video clip lead in, and here we are, still short on power, but that's fine. We didn't use computer all day yesterday, virtually, and it was cloudy, overcast, so it looks like I got enough power. We'll see how it goes. And that was Eric leaving on Sunbear. Did you spot the problem with this departure? It's the bane of my life. Anything look strange about this picture, leaving to sail out all the way to Tonga? And there are certain requirements under the notice of race, and I keep telling everyone, and there's been 2 or 3 boats that still don't comply. So anyway, we're addressing the issue, and that's all I'll say. But anyway, Eric's having fun, great sailor, great guy. Dinky Die Aussie, I call him like the quintessential Aussie. You know, you listen to him talk and stuff, he's as if he's an Aussie farmer from out in the bush, but he's a great guy. He's a businessman. He does all this sort of stuff and bits and pieces, and real character. So safe journey there. You probably just saw, just as I was about to come up, Argo, Christian had a Mayday relay. What that means is if someone's in trouble in an area and you hear that Mayday call, but you can't actually assist for whatever reason, you can actually do a Mayday relay. So you can just let other people know that there is someone in trouble potentially in that area. And the weather looks really good. If it's a VHF reception, something's happening. I'm not sure, because the Mayday relay was probably from the officials, like the Port Authority or something, because it's an EPIRB or PLB distress alert via satellite. And so they know the approximate area. It's strange because usually they'll know who it is, because all of the EPIRBs, whether it's a PLB, the little one, personal one, or whether it's the ship's EPIRB, will actually have an identification link to it. There's a phone number they can ring, and they should know who it is. And as Argo absolutely said, he checked his EPIRBs and PLBs to make sure they weren't inadvertently activated. So he's confident it's not an EPIRB on his boat that went off, but nonetheless, he'll keep an eye out because in the area and things like that. So false alarms do happen. The recent one we had, or the last one we were involved with directly, was when Gary Swindle on question 2 was doing his qualifier out of Antigua. He had a false PLB alarm, right? And that message eventually got from the MRCC back to us in Antigua, and we weren't expecting it because the weather was good and this, that, and the other. And 2 things happened. The first one is we try and contact Gary, but he was potentially asleep, because we then immediately contacted his manager, and his manager said he hadn't spoken to him for a while, but the last contact they had was that he was possibly going to sleep or whatever it is. So when he's asleep, you can't talk to him. You don't know. So then the thing that gets checked then is you look at the EPIRB signal and you compare that with the tracking signal. So we immediately increased the tracking up to every 15 minutes. All of this was taking about an hour or so that you could see where the tracker says the boat is, and if the PLB signal is in roughly the same position, you then immediately know at least Gary's still on the boat, and then it's highly likely that, or another reason to suspect it's a false alarm. If the PLB signal is separating from the boat position from the satellite tracker, you can see that PLB, whether it's actually on Gary or whether it's in the water floating, if he threw it over the side, is separating, so something's in the water, and that could mean a man overboard situation. And we were discussing all this with the MRCC there, but because there's no definitive situation, in other words, okay, the signal is still on the boat and going off, they have no other option to enact the whole process. So it was about 80 minutes later, 90 minutes later, they were actually about to launch the plane. They'd done the flight planning and the coordination and everything to fly overhead and see what was going on. And fortunately, Gary's manager, who was regularly, every 5-10 minutes ringing him on the sat phone, fortunately Gary woke up and we got him, and I got the call, he's okay, he's on board, it was false alarm. And so they were able to stand down the plane and everything was resolved. and in hindsight, in retrospect, Gary looked at it and it was on his life jacket on the ground, on the floor of the boat, and he might have stood on it or something, which is still unusual because you can stand on a PLB and it won't go off. It has the activation button has a cover over it, but for whatever reason, it did go off, but it was all resolved well. So hopefully that situation with Argo is actually going to turn out okay as well. So, but the system is amazing. I've always got the utmost respect for civilization and the funding that's available for the rescue coordination centres around the world, and the work that they do is phenomenal. And I've been involved with this stuff for 40 years, at various levels, with crisis management and crisis planning, risk assessment, all this sort of stuff, and it's very impressive. And the most common, I'll just bring it up, the most common thing, that happens, and one of the reasons we're supporting, I'm going right back here, one of the reasons we support Adventure is because a long time ago, Adventure, I'm going to say a long time ago, 30 years ago, in Australia, solo sailing was getting a real hammering. This is back in the 80s. It was considered, it wasn't illegal, you couldn't stop it. But everyone, the authorities and people saying, oh, it's dangerous, it's reckless, who's going to pay for the rescue, all this sort of stuff. And bringing it forward to now, a common comment from people is that, ventures like this, you should have rescue insurance. There is no such thing as rescue insurance. If there was, it would be fraud, because none of the rescue coordination centres around the world and the countries that are signatory of the SOLAS agreement are able to charge for the services they provide. It's written into the agreements. It's done free of charge, and the country is sort of, by signing that treaty, is obligated simply to do the best they possibly can to save life at sea, no matter who it is or what it is, whether it's a fisherman, whether it's a cruise ship with 600 people on it, or whether it's a plane or whatever. They just do the best they can. Now, if you're in some small country who's a signatory that's doesn't have a huge gross domestic product, and they might only have a couple of rowboats to help with the search, but they will do the best they can. It's not going to be as good as if it was in New Zealand or New Caledonia, or where they have a more robust economy and they can have a more impressive search and rescue coordination organisation that links into the military to use their assets as well, and all this sort of stuff. You get first class service. If you're really in the shit, they lay it on big time, because what's the price of human life? It's priceless. So yeah, and then having done that, they do not charge. That service to rescue the people is free of charge. They will not be obligated to rescue the boat. If it's a sailor on a boat, and you put your EPIRB on, they'll come and do everything they can to get you, and hopefully they're successful, and they'll take you off the boat, but your boat is gone. It'll be left adrift or whatever, and sometimes even sunk if it's considered to be a navigation hazard. But interestingly, recently, I've seen a couple of cases where they were simple. They were only 100 miles offshore, actually out from Fiji, and the Navy at the time decided to tow the boat home because it was so quick and it saves the navigation hazard. So, but generally they are after the people. And so therefore you cannot buy rescue insurance. Now, a lot of the things that you see with insurance, where they say, you'll get our recovery and stuff. There's one mob that advertise regularly on Facebook. That's got nothing to do with SOLAS and normal rescue coordination centre costs and this and the other. That's after the effect. Once they drop you off ashore, the rescue people will take you to the nearest port or safety, depending on who's affected the rescue, and then you're on your own, and so you can get flights home and things like that. Or and to explain how that works is that, say you're out in I'll use Southern Ocean as an example. You're in strife. The Rescue Coordination Centre might send a plane over from, say, Australia or New Zealand, and there might be a ship, container ship, a passenger ship, whatever, and they'll be requested to go and assist and evacuate that person from a life raft or a disabled yacht or something, and that ship might have to divert hundreds of miles to get to that rescue situation. They will take the person off. Now, if that ship happened to be picking them up off the bottom of New Zealand, but they were then going all the way to Portugal, right? The rescued person is stuck on the boat, and they get taken all the way to Portugal, okay? Because they don't divert the ship. Then the ship just looks after them, feeds them, give them clothes, medical attention, and so on. And that's where the person gets off. So they might be on the ship for a month or so while they were voyaging, but no one is charged. And it's actually maritime law that even the ship is obligated, if requested by a rescue coordination centre, to go and evacuate that person from a life raft or a yacht. They're legally obligated to, under the understanding that they will do the best they can and they can't endanger their own ship. So if for whatever reason the weather's really bad or whatever, they believe it's unsafe for them to actually go and rescue that person, uh, whatever, then they're not obligated to do it. But if everything is normal, then you're requested to go and assist, and you cannot even charge for that process. So it might cost the ship, and a real world situation I was involved with one of them, cost the ship, I was expedition leader on this ship, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even to the point where eventually it probably cost them over $500,000, cost the company over $500,000 to go and assist. I was on the ship anyway. A solo sailor, a French solo sailor in Southern Ocean waters off Tasmania, and the company just has to absorbed all that. It's a bit of a long story, but anyway. So yeah, the whole international system of distress alert, SOLAS, responsibility, and so on is really impressive. We work closely with them. We've already given the safety book to all of the rescue coordination centres in the next immediate area of the course of the MGR. So that includes Tahiti, it includes New Zealand, it includes Australia, New Caledonia. There's some more in there as well. Anyway, we've given them all the book, and a couple of them come back and said, "Wow, this is impressive," because we provide a lot of information, and they're happy to receive that, and they just keep an eye on the fleet. They just if for no other reason for fun as well. Just to see where we are and what we're doing, because the MGR does actually include risk. Okay, and we as a coordinator of these independent voyages that are doing their own thing, sailing around the world, and the sailors themselves have done everything possible to minimize that risk, which then puts it in a level where, we all agree that yes, there are risks, but they are completely acceptable. And importantly, there's one very critical issue that is catered for, and I believe is real, and it's a standard principle that I've always used in all the adventures I've ever done, and that comes down to the fact that you do everything possible to make sure you don't need rescuing. But more important than that, you then make every effort that if you ever do turn your EPIRB on and you have to be rescued, you can look your rescuer in the eye and simply say to him, "Hey, buddy, thanks. And I've done everything possible to make your life easier." Now, it even goes into another subject, and the professionalism of all the rescue coordination centres is unbelievable. And one of the things that I always relate to is you got to ask sometimes, why would the rescuers and the people, flying the helicopters and, doing all this stuff, why would they do that, right? And they're doing it because that's their life. They're doing it as a service, but it's also their own adventure. It's really a strange thing, you don't do that stuff unless you've got this sort of, you're really living life and you believe in what you're doing, and they are totally professional. But boy, they sacrifice as well. They put themselves at risk and in danger to rescue other people, and I've always got the utmost respect for all of those guys. And we're always very happy to have them on, have them in the background. And I've never had, over the years, over many, many years, we've been involved with many, many rescues and, crisis situations and this, that, and the other. I've never, ever had one word at all of any criticism. We will go straight to the TRAKER now and get into it. There's been some fun stuff going on, and it's good to see everyone coming out at sea. So you're on the TRAKER, and now I'm on the TRAKER. Blinky Bill and the boys out there. I'll put the wind up. Got a few more at sea. I just got a message from Dan Canadan, saying he might be able to do a live cross to him, maybe in the next 12, 18 hours or something. We'll just coordinate that, so that'll be fun to see what he's up to. We haven't spoken to him online for some time, so we'll do that live here as soon as we set that up. Okay, so what am I doing here? So there's a nice bit of weather there. That big area of instability seems to have cleared away, and we'll start right back here with John and Co. I'll just put that up here. They're getting closer. They must be getting a bit excited now. So the time there's 1200 and 1600. There's still a 4-hour difference in timelines there. We're not sure why. We'll talk to YB3 again about that. But anyway, 4.3 knots, 108 mile days. They're doing okay. Popeye, 4.1 knots, 105. So they're still basically sailing alongside each other. 100 miles, so there must be about 400 miles from the Marquesas now. Nice breeze, it's 15 to 20, which is cool. And we'll just zip that along a little bit. There goes a day. Is that going to turn over? Yep, pretty much the same. So for the 25th, pretty much the same. So if they're, they'll be in there in 4 days, within 4 days. So that's pretty cool. Coming down here, just Gary's finally approaching Papiete. He'll be very happy about that. I got a message from him today talking about some stuff, and he is completely happy with his new boat. He calls it his new boat or whatever it was because he got a new bottom, and he's sailing properly and normally. And yes, right now 4.8 knots, 105 mile a day, and he's pretty close. So I'll just pick that up one more, and then I'll give you a measure just to give you an ETA for those that are watching. Here we go. Boom. He's 300 and what the heck? Oh no, 34 miles. I was going to say 34.62 nautical miles, and he's making 34 miles. He's making 5 knots. He should hold that all the way in because the wind looks like it's picking up. So it's 6-7 hours, and that was from 8 o'clock this morning. So the positions are pretty relevant. So I think you'll see him there within about 6 or 7 hours. We should see him in. That would be cool. And here's Eric on his way. 4 knots, 9 nautical miles in the last 24 hours because he's just left. So he's okay. There's a bit of yellow there, and the breeze is coming from the east, so there'll be no shadows there. I'm surprised he's holding up at that angle. I'm not sure why. He could have cut the corner because it's quite solid. But anyway, that's where he is. And he's probably got 25, gusting 30. And I'd say the sea state where he is now, it might not show it on the... we'll have a look anyway. Oh, hang on a sec. I better come back to real-time weather. Oh, there you go. That's why. Because I thought he was going a bit slow as well. Thought he might have been asleep. That's a bit better. Radio. You can see the weather's a lot less. So the wind is going to be increasing over the next 24, 48 hours down here. But right now it's probably 10 to 15. That explains why he's doing 4. And that explains his course because it's wind strength there, not a lot. So he's just keeping the breeze on, and it's good for the wind vane, good for his steering. I think it's night time there. Now, I forget too many things in there. 8 o'clock. I'm over here at Fiji. Is daytime. No, it's the end of the day. So he was be coming in tonight. Is that right? Oh boy, I used to be a navigator once, but anyway, we won't even bring up the subject. I got no idea. I forget. Anyway, he's having fun. Christian, 4.4 knots, 60 nautical miles in the last 24 hours. But again, he hasn't been out there that long, but not going super fast. But you can see why. The weather's pretty straightforward, and it's coming further aft for him when he comes around on course. And somewhere around here, there is a Mayday relay. Now I'm just going to check something here. 21 miles. Yeah, it might be a VHF repeater from there. I'm not sure whether the Mayday relay 32 miles, whether the Mayday relay came from a ship in the area or something like that, or whether it was from a shore station. And that's potentially within range of a repeater, VHF repeater. high up on one of these mountains. Sometimes they do that, and I forget whether there's a big VHF coverage over some of this area, and there may well be, and that's why you could go that far. So if it was an MRCC situation, they would be out to try and find out where this alarm is going off. Anyway, we talked about that, so we don't need to go there. But it was interesting to see where Christian is right now. Okay, so that's the situation there. Then coming back to Dan, he's moving along quite well. 5.1 knots, 119 mile day. Oh, jeepers! He seems pretty close to Peeler and Kerry. Let's have a look. Quite surprised there, unless I'm not thinking straight, which I often do. 56 miles behind. That's pretty impressive. Yep. So absolutely in the hunt, and that's kind of keeps the door open in a few different ways. So Peeler's doing 5 knots, 102 mile day. So you can see Dan's got 120 mile day. He's absolutely picked up ground there. Kerry's fluffing around with his course here, 96 mile day. And that's part of it. And once again, but he's got his new Aries, so up and down a bit. And I think the weather's not been as consistent in the last 24 hours as it's showing here right now. It looks as if they're all be getting the same, but that could only be in the last 6 hours or so as it's coming over. So, but it's fun because all of a sudden now this league group is closing up a bit. Holiday Dan 5.2, 103 mile day, so that's okay. And Renaud 5.8, 123. Doesn't that really just make you scratch your head? He's still got the fastest distance. Good on him. Still leading the pack, pulled away a little bit further, and powering on. It was interesting, if you saw the press release that we sent out. Renaud's really pushing hard sometimes. When he was saying he was only getting 3 hours, he basically said he was getting 3 hours sleep a night for the whole leg down from Marquesas to Tahiti, which is crazy. I wouldn't be able to survive on 3 hours a night. I'd be too tired. I'd have to. And the other thing he said was that he was dropping. I found this quite strange. He was dropping his sails because of the sea state to have a sleep or go to the head. If you want to have a dump, which seemed like a lot of work. But obviously, if the hydrovane's not steering or whatever because of the sea state, then you got a problem. But knowing the hydrovane, I thought, well, even with a crazy sea state, you just drop your main, have a little head sail, the hydrovane's going to steer the boat. So it was strange. It maybe meant that he was just dropping the main or something to keep it balanced while he had a dump or whatever. I'm not sure, but I was, when I read Graham's report, I was thinking, jeepers, this is interesting. So anyway, he's holding the lead, which is cool, and the others are trying to chase, which is okay. So I'm going to go back now and have a look at what's going to happen to this weather in the next 24, 48 hours. So I'll just push it through now. You can see what's going on here. You got the big winds down south spinning off, which we spoke about yesterday. That's on 1 o'clock on the 24th, so we're still pushing through. They're just riding above it. But here comes some fun. If I look at this here, you can actually see there's a distinct hole here, right? And the wind is coming out of the hole. It's not just there's a difference. See, you've got a grey patch here a blue patch directly above Renaud, right? And that just means a difference in wind strength, but you can see the wind is all going in the same direction, right? When you see this in the graphic, even though the graphic may not be correct, that's a hole and it's distorting the wind. When this is hitting it, it's bouncing down this way. It's spinning off there. Up here, it's going up in a northwesterly direction here, and so it's an impact. So that's a pressure gradient, right? And this is exactly what causes. They're trying to show us in this graphic that there's something happening right here, and that could create quite strong, nasty squalls. So, and even here, you look at this. There's something going over the top, but right there, the wind is swung. Down to a southwest. So you've got southwest here, northwest up there. There's another distortion here. So that is absolutely a squall area. And that's quite interesting. So they could, Renaud will be the first one in that area. We'll have a look what happens as it rolls across, because in 24 hours, let's just see where they'll be. You can pick it through another 100 miles or something. You're going to be right. You'll be potentially right on top of that. So hold on to your hats, everyone. And if you're watching this, Renaud, you probably know even before me what's going on because you'd be watching it more often. And anyway, that's all part of the fun, as they say in the classics. Okay, just moving along. I've got to hit this, and we'll push it into the 25th. It's actually, yep, it's defined itself. Oh, this is interesting. That system that we spoke about has actually looked like it's forming up, and it's gone north. It's come up north from where it was yesterday. Remember, we hit the 20 degrees south of the equator here. It was down below the course a little bit, and it's maybe sped up a bit because they were going to miss it, but now they might start to impact this system here. So this is on the 25th, so that's only a bit of a day at 36 hours. We're just going to be on the back edge of it, and then it dips south. So Renaud might have some squalls and stuff, but he's going to miss the worst of it if this is correct. And I've got to say, I haven't looked on Windy, but I'll have a look on Windy. This graphic was a little bit different than Windy, okay? And it was all about north-south positioning of this disturbance here, this pressure interaction. So as much as this is what it's telling us, it could be quite dramatically different in reality. So I think both Renaud and Dan will be keeping an eye on the horizon and looking at real weather in their area rather than even relying on this forecast. I really do believe this is a little bit more unstable or could be anywhere because there are different computer models. I should have probably put Windy up here and showed you the difference, but you have 3 or 4 different computer models and they'll all come up with a different determination. But even Windy's ECMWF, which is half of what this one's generated from, was showing to be in little different stuff. So I'll go and have a look later, but I can't do it now. Okay, so there's certainly some fun weather in front of them, and it could create challenges. This is pushing through a bit more, and we know that once that's gone through, assuming it goes under them, there's going to be some area in the next few days of very light winds. So everything's going to slow down a little bit, and maybe the back markers, or when I say back markers, the lead group behind Renaud might compress a little bit. So Renaud may have some competition coming up behind him a little bit, close the gap a little bit. So there we go through to the 28th. And we'll just make this a bit. Oh, we can see Tonga there, so that's the course. Still got a distance to go, 28th, 29th, and then it comes into beautiful trade winds, beautiful sailing, but you don't want to be too far south, so they're all in a good position. They want to hold up there and then slowly close down to Tonga. And the distance at the moment for Renaud from Tonga, give you an idea of the ETA. Oh, still a way to go, 860 miles. That's going to be 7 days, maybe a week or less. But it's going to be quiet, so I say it's probably going to be a good week. It'd be a good week. Okay, I think we're done with all of that. We can look at the sea state while we're here. There's very little current, but I'll have a look. There we go. Yeah, pretty good seas, all down 1 to 2 meters, you could say. Currents, they should be pretty bland. Yeah, that's interesting. There's a bit of half knot head current there. Maybe even a little bit more coming closer. There's one patch there. So, we got that from the wrong weather. Here we go. It's okay. It's favourable. So nothing to worry about. They have a check on the waves. You're going to have the weather wrong. It's a bit there. Okay, so that disturbance has kicked it up to about 4 meters, 3.5, 4 meters. And that's going to stay there for... There's one day now they'll run right on the edge of it, so they should be okay. They're going to, oh boy, this is up around 5, which is what I was saying the other day. There's 5 meters in here, 4 meters along here, 3 meters on the edge, but this is in a day or so. So yep, the sea's going to pick up a little bit. That's the 25th. Yep, the sea's building. So batten the hatches, boys, but it's all from the right wind direction anyway, so it should be fine. But it's doing what this leg does, which we've spoken about often. Okay, so that's it. We've still got enough power. We're still driving. Hit that and I'm back again. So that's it for today. And as I said, this will be the usual time we're targeting for the updates. And while I can, I'll keep doing an update every day while this thing's happening. And all is good. So Let's see who's here. Okay, g'day, John. Just remember to like and subscribe and share and comment on the system. It helps us with everything. That's French. G'day, Francois. Pourquoi le chutage de functional plus? No, I can't pick that. Sorry, mate. I'll come back and answer your comment on YouTube. I see you're on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know whether you can even understand me, Francois, but I'll translate it and come and have a look on YouTube for that one. Hi, Don. Nice to see you present. I'm finally catching the live. Oh, good on you. Well, this will be the time for now. We get into a routine, and we're going to be in the area for a while, so I'll stick with this. Hey, g'day, Rachel, aeronautic. I'm a retired. There you go, sir. Military pilot. Good on you. Yeah, amazing job. And I think you'd probably agree. You're a pilot. You obviously loved your job, and it was your own personal little adventure. And in the back of my mind, certainly the SAR guys, they'd rather be doing that than doing exercises. Something real. I've had close communication and contact with some of the people involved with some of the rescues when it's over, especially military personnel that are regularly doing exercises, and then all of a sudden, bingo, hey guys, you call out, there's a boat in trouble, go do this, that, and the other. And I think it's fair to say they say, oh, great, we got some hands on, and they get a big buzz as well, and there's been some huge successes, especially in Australia. I'm talking Australia, sort of real world stuff over the last 20, 30 years. They've made some amazing rescues out of Australia, and it's a real morale booster for all of the forces and all the pilots and the sailors and this, that, and the other, and the officers. And, it's real world stuff. And so we won't go into the subject who pays for rescue, but obviously the countries that can provide that rescue do it. And if they can't afford it, they can't do it. And that's part of the deal where it comes down to, they do the best job they possibly can without obligation, sort of. There is an obligation, but only, it's balanced. And certain areas have got higher risk, and certain countries can offer better service, So, but thanks for your service, aeronautic. Retired aeronautic. G'day, Christine. Thanks for all the coverage, Christine, the photos and the videos and stuff. Catching out Eric. He should be, jeepers. He'll hate you. Anyway, okay, aeronautic. I volunteered my Aztec PA you've got your own plane as well. I'm envious. I flew almost 1,000 flight hours. Fantastic. Yeah. Staying current's good. I'm a frustrated flyer, just so you know. I had a GA license, gyrocopter license, weight shift license, did 8 hours in gliders, helicopter. We had our own helicopter at one stage. I had a few different things, but total air time is only about 450 hours. So you can imagine what happens there. It's just all part of the experience. But yeah, some good flying stories as well. Yeah, Jane's giving me a hard time. She's got nothing now. Sold them all. That's right. But every now and then I look at bloody gyrocopters, and there's some really nice ones up in Poland and all the rest of it. I think, it'd be so good to go flying again. But you can't. Flying and sailing don't mix so well, because when the days you want to go flying, you should be out sailing and so on. And you have to stay current, and you'd understand this, aeronautic. I don't know what your name is, but you got to stay current, and if you're not flying enough hours, you've got to be very careful. So, but I've had a lot of fun flying. I've got to tell you, love it. Gunnar, I've been involved. Oh, good on you. As a volunteer in the Swedish SAR organisation since 2009. That's another point as well about the volunteer organisations. The part of the assets of the whole system. And I must say that it's fantastic that this works on volunteer basis in most places on Earth. Yeah, exactly right. In Australia, we have the I forget the name of it now, but it used to be the Volunteer Coastal Patrol, the little Coast Guard, and it's all these amateurs that train to a professional level, doing all sorts of stuff just for little fishermen out in their fishing boats, like mums and dads fishing boat type thing. And they have great facilities. They're supported by people giving them donations, and their assets, like their boats and stuff, get better and better. And I just read a story the other day about the guys at the Gold Coast, I think it was, in Queensland, doing a sort of a rescue. Yeah, it was a rescue, like 120 miles offshore or something, in their own boats, going out, and they actually towed the boat back all the way. It was quite epic. So, yeah, the voluntary organisations are there. So you have the national organisation, which is the Rescue Coordination Centre, which controls everything, and then you have all the police all around Australia, and you have all these volunteer organisations, and you have the military, the Army, Navy, and Air Force that can bring it in, and it's directed, by the MRCC, and they have their own assets as well. The Rescue Coordination Centre in Australia has really impressive aircraft and specially trained pilots with special equipment and so on. But they're able to call in the Navy and the Air Force if they need bigger stuff, and go all the way down the line to local police and also the Coast Guard, the voluntary organisations and all that stuff. Is very impressive. We used to have a bit of jokes about the voluntary ones. No disrespect, because they're all volunteers, so you just have a bit of a go. But cheapers, they provide a really good service, and they dedicate a lot of their time to training and practicing and being, even though they're volunteers, being very professional. And over the last, because I first saw them, 50 years ago or more, the level of professionalism and the level of assets those voluntary organisations have got now has continually grown over the years and decades and so on. And now they're, you got to look at them and say, well, they're very professional volunteers, I've got to say. So good on you, Gunnar. Thanks a lot for the explanation of the rescue system. Ask how fast are the rescues to be able to cover 100 miles, for example? Well, it depends entirely on what the situation is. It's hard to say 100 miles it depends on the situation, how the alert was given and what assets are around at the time, whether, so it's very hard to define that because, 100 miles offshore, let's say, typical case in Australia. Okay, so someone 100 miles offshore in Australia sets off a PLB or an EPIRB, okay? The first people to know about that will be the Rescue Coordination Centre in Canberra, okay? And they will immediately look at what's going on and see immediately what ships are around. Big ships have got a mandatory reporting system. So any ship transiting Australian waters has to report, I forget how often, and in fact now I think it's rolled over to automatic position tracking, like not just AIS, but they have to, I'm going back to when we had our own little ship, they had a tracking system, a dedicated tracking system, so the Rescue Coordination Centre in Canberra can see where every ship is, and they'll see, is there anyone close? They're going to have a look. If there's not, the first thing they'll do is they want to know what's happening on the ground, so they'll launch a plane, right? So they quickly scramble a plane, and they'll get that up overhead just to have a look, right? That plane may or may not be equipped with equipment like droppable life rafts or radios or survival pod or something like that. They want to have a look and see what's going on. Why's the PLB going off? And once they get the plane up there, then they'll decide what they've got to do to, affect the rescue, which is very dependent on the situation. But if it's close and it's like by Southport, as I just said, they might get the Volunteer Coastal Patrol, I forget the name of it now, right, to send effectively a 30-foot launch or something like that, or they've got different assets again they could use if it's offshore, but they won't risk the lives of any of the personnel, so they'll allocate an asset that's more relevant, and that takes time, especially from the initial alert. So it could take a couple of hours before, or it could take, and it depends how far they are from the air asset they're going to put up. It might take them an hour or so to get a plane in the air and get over the site. It might take them another hour to fly over the site, so it could be a couple of hours. So it varies. So it's hard to put an actual figure on, how quick does it take to get to 100 miles. But I got to tell you, they're all very professional. I've been in a couple of different rescue coordination centres when rescues are taking place, and the biggest thing that hits you at the time watching them do their work, and often there's 2 or 3 things happening at the same time because their area of responsibility could be massive. They are all incredibly professional. It comes across as if they're cold and unemotional because they just get on with their job. It's a really good lesson to see that when you're in a crisis situation, try to just black out your emotions and just work in sequence and do the things that you've got to do, right? So even though I had one particular case, I forget whether that was in Wellington or wherever where I was, the situation was quite dramatic that was going on. It just started, we were there for a tour, part of it, conference that was going on. The situation was quite dramatic, with potentially lives on the line, and the guys were just going on as if they're just doing their job, because that's the most efficient way to make it happen. If you get all your emotions tied up with it, and you've got to try to rush and do things, you've got to do this, everything can go wrong. And it's very impressive, that whole system. So they work efficiently. Appreciate it. Thanks to the rescue people that drive things process. Yeah, it is. It's quite a special feeling when you can help someone. The amount of SARS have decreased dramatically since GPS plotters. Yeah, I got to agree. The worst part was when the previous EPIRBs, which transmitted only on 1215, and they had no individual rescue link, no registration number, so you couldn't tell whether it was a false alarm or not. It was a nightmare. Every time an EPIRB went off, they had to launch a rescue, or search rather, preceding the rescue. But nowadays, when an EPIRB goes off, the first thing they do is they ring the registration numbers, and it saves a lot of false alarms. So it's all pretty good, to the point now where now they actively sometimes mandate or publicise the fact that people bushwalking should have an EPIRB, a PLB, and that's often used for bushwalkers and anyone, wherever you are. So it's all pretty good. Aeronautic, the Cape Index shows some instability in the current leg of the race. Yeah, it's going to happen. We've all been talking about it since Papiete, so thanks, Aeronautic. There's some real interesting stuff. I'm certainly going to go and have another look on Windy when we get off here, just to see how dramatic it might be, but they need to button up and be ready. But they are, so they're all good. It was good to see Christian carrying on. That's good. What are they doing for money, cash in all these different countries, Adrian? They raid their piggy bank, so they got to pay. But I haven't seen. I mean, it's not that difficult. Most of them have got credit cards and stuff, and it's all. We very rarely go into a country with local currency. Very rarely. It's just all credit cards and debit cards and stuff. And I think they'd probably be doing the same. So it's not such a problem. Just like any tourist, I suppose. So that's easy. They might carry a bit of cash on board, bits and pieces, but it wouldn't be much. So the Royal Life, in the UK is no joke. They are fantastic, all volunteers. It goes without saying, they're some of the best, and they have some of the worst weather on the coast, and it's a lot of short range. When the other chap was asking about how long does it take to get to 100 miles out, the RNLI is expert at that. They'll have boats ready to go. They call the volunteer crews in. They zip their boats down launch ramps. They have inshore rescue teams. They have slightly offshore ones. They've been doing it forever because that's the nature of the weather and the conditions, and being a maritime nation all around the coast. It's amazing to look at the number of shipwrecks around the coast of England. They're everywhere. So they do a pretty cool job, and the local population, the people support it quite heavily. Financially, with donations and fundraising and things like that. So it's a pretty good system. Okay, thank you very much. We're out of here. Cheap, it's 3/4 of an hour. They're getting too long. Okay, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. See you later.